Hi folks, it's Shane here again at Isle of Wight Bushcraft. Welcome back and thanks for joining me. Well, this time I'd like to share a couple of tips with respect to the bow and drill method. It's a difficult and slow curve, can be, but I've got a couple of tips that I'd like to pass on to you which may well increase your success rate as it has mine, so stay tuned. So to demonstrate these helpful hints and tips that have helped my bow drill method of firelighting to improve, I took a short stroll to a local woodland. Well, we're here again in this lovely wood, and I wanted to share you a couple of little tips that I've picked up along the way for the bow drill method. As we know, with the bow drill, it's all down to practice. It does come eventually, and you can make mistakes along the way, and you learn from those. But I thought a couple of little tips here which will maybe increase your success rate and maybe get you there a little bit quicker. First thing I would emphasise is your timber. In this instance I'm using, well, I bought two pieces actually. Sycamore. This is a lovely seasoned piece of sycamore which I've been drying for some months. That works quite well. And also I've got a wild plum here, which I find works really well also, or blackthorn, same sort of wood. You can see the difference in colour. And the spindle I'm using is a nice seasoned piece of pine wood. And I find that with a softer wood, a pine, and a harder wood, say the plum or the sycamore, these work really well together, I find. But don't take my word for it, experiment, and that's what I've done, and I just found that these work well together, so I kind of stick with these. Now, another thing that I do, which really does make the bow drill method that much easier and more successful, is my bearing block. Now, what I've done with my bearing block is I bought a ball race, and I've hollowed out my bearing block, and it's a tight squeeze, but I forced it in. So I've now got a captive ball race in my bearing block. So that when I put my spindle in, there's no friction at all. So the base of the spindle is free to rotate, and all the energy will be going in the bottom and none will be lost in the top. So what I'll do in a moment is I'll demonstrate to you just how effective these few little modifications work. But first we need a tinder bundle, and this is quite an ancient copse, so I know that there's Clematis that grows in here. You normally need quite an ancient woodland to gather Clematis, and if I get some Clematis bark, that makes a lovely tinder bundle, and a little tip on how to process that as well, which makes life a lot easier. So let's go and get some Clematis bark for our tinder bundle. So that's what we're looking for. Some nice Clematis. You can see there's a nice thick piece, and I'm going to cut a piece of that as well to use as for the hand drill. But it's bark that we want today. So I've actually found some dead Clematis here, and that's what I'm looking for really. So I'm just going to take my knife now and just harvest some of this Clematis bark off of this one. And this will make a nice tinder bundle. This is good bark. So what I normally do is just prise my knife in under the bark and then strip it off in strips like so. So there we go, just prise the bark off and then just strip that off. And you want to find a dead Clematis, preferably, but not rotten. I normally find gives you the best bark. Prise a bit more off and it should be enough. So there we are. I've got a nice handful of Clematis bark. Now what you can do is you can try and buff this up by hand, because it does need buffing. This won't be any good as a tinder bundle without buffing. So you can spend a lot of time buffing it like so. Getting very dusty and by the end of it quite sore hands. But I'll show you a better way of doing this. So what we want is a good stout tree and with nice rough bark, and then we take our Clematis bark and then we just rub it up and down on the rough bark of the tree. And that does a really good job of buffing up the Clematis, as you can probably see. Obviously you want to do this with the wind in your back, as I am now, so that all the dust and the chafe-like material blows away from you. Otherwise you're going to get a face full of dust, which is not very pleasant. That's doing a really good job, that. So there you are, that's good to go, ready to take our ember. So I've got my tinder bundle ready to go, and I've got a piece of birch bark just to catch my ember, especially with all this these ransoms around, because we don't want that, a lot of moisture in those, we don't want that getting into the ember. And what I'll do is I'll use the sycamore hearth board. Another thing that's worthwhile noting is with your drill, just between usages or between attempts, I always just sharpen off the drill just a little bit. You want it reasonably blunt, but not too blunt, otherwise it will tend to wander out of the hearthboard hole. And I'll take this burnt wood off the end as well, so that you've got good fresh wood to give a good dust. So you can see that. And just take a little bit off the end. I don't need this. You probably notice with a spindle it's not too sharp at this end. Well, it doesn't need to be, because that just goes into our bearing block just right. So we're good to go. Let's give it a go. And I'm assuming I'll get an ember first time. I'll say this is using these methods or these little modifications, I do get quite a good success rate. So let's try it. There we are. That's our drill ready. Okay, take our bearing block with our captive ball racing. Okay. Get out of the way so you can see. Now another thing that I notice is that when you're using your bow is to go at a slight downward stroke, and that way your cordage on your bow doesn't chafe against itself. If you're doing an upward stroke, it's binding on itself, but a slight downward stroke and it doesn't bind on itself, which means your cordage will last a lot longer. And then we all know this bit, don't we? Just build up a bit of smoke, and then when we get smoke, it shouldn't take too long. There we have our ember, and we just want to be very careful tapping this out of our notch. There we are. We just let that just rest for a little bit. You don't have to rush this part. There we go. Okay, all we've got to do now, carefully transfer our ember to our nest. There we are. Slowly close her up and then blow to flame. Slowly close her up. Being careful of the ember here. And then we can blow to flame now. And when this goes to flame, you'll see how good this Clematis bark is. As a tinder bundle. Nearly there. Typical, the wind changes direction every time you do this, it seems. There we go. So there we are, folks. That's the first ember, first time with the ember, with a bow drill. And by having that captive bull race in the in your oh, that's getting hot. In the bearing block, it does improve the success rate. And like I said, it's important that your timbers and so forth are well seasoned. So there we are. So there we are, folks. I find that my success rate went right up when I started making sure. I'll just blow this to flame again. Saves the smoke. I found my success rate went right up, making sure my timber was dry, and softer wood for your drill, I find, and that captive ball race in your bearing block, which just turns. The reason I use a sealed bearing or a ball race is so that no dirt, debris or moisture gets in there and it doesn't rust up. That sealed bearing is good for a long time, and it does make a lot of difference, because when you're using the spindle, as you can appreciate, there's no friction on this top part. All your energy that you're using is going into creating friction on the bottom part with the drill as it's in the half. So I hope you found that helpful, guys, and maybe give it a try yourselves and let me know how you get on. So anyway, that's all for this time. Thanks for joining me, and all being well, I'll see you on the next video. So take care, guys, and bye for now.